The rain hammered my garage roof like bullets on tin while I wrestled with the carburetor of my ancient Saab. My hands were black with grease, my back ached from hunching over the engine, and my marriage was apparently falling apart in real time via text message. Meeting an old friend at a cafe today? Don't call. I stared at Liana's message, wiping my grimy fingers on an old rag. 37 years old, and I was still naive enough to believe my wife when she said she was working late or catching up with girlfriends. But this text? This was different. This was brazen. My name is Owen Reddick, and I'm what you might call aggressively average. Systems analyst by day, amateur mechanic by night, husband to a woman who apparently thought I was born yesterday. I've got the kind of face that blends into crowds, brown hair going gray at the temples, glasses held together with electrical tape, and the pallor that comes from spending too much time staring at computer screens. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to pay attention. You notice things, like how Liana had been dressing differently for her coffee meetings, designer blouses instead of her usual sweaters, perfume that cost more than my monthly car payment, and that particular way she held her phone like it contained state secrets. I pulled out my own phone, fingers still trembling slightly from rage, and typed back, "Tell him I've already sent the documents to his wife. She's at the police station now." It was a complete bluff, of course. I had no documents, no evidence, and definitely hadn't contacted anyone's wife. But sometimes the best weapon against liars is letting them think you know more than you do. 15 minutes later, I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. Through the garage window, I watched my wife hurry up the walkway with a man I'd never seen before, but immediately hated. He was everything I wasn't: tall, tanned, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. His hair was perfectly styled despite the rain, and he moved with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to fix your own car. I wiped my hands clean and walked to the front door, arriving just as Liana started pounding on it. "Owen! Owen, open up! We need to talk!" Her voice had that high, panicked edge that meant she was caught, and she knew it. I took my time unlocking the deadbolt, savoring the moment. When I finally opened the door, both of them looked like they'd seen a ghost. Well, I said, leaning against the doorframe, "if it isn't my loving wife and her old friend." "Funny, Liana, you never mentioned your old friend was so handsome, or married." The man, Brett, I'd learn later, stepped forward with his hand extended. "Listen, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I interrupted, "is that you two thought I was stupid enough not to notice." I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a manila envelope I'd prepared weeks ago when I first started suspecting something was wrong. Inside were printed screenshots of every text message, every suspicious charge on our joint credit card, every piece of evidence I'd been quietly collecting like a patient spider building his web. "Here," I said, handing Liana the envelope, "your coffee receipts. Funny how expensive coffee has gotten these days. $47 for 2 drinks? Must have been some premium beans." Liana's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Her face went from flushed to pale to green in the space of about 10 seconds. Brett peered over her shoulder, and I watched the color drain from his face, too. "How did you—" Liana started. "Joint budget app, sweetheart? Remember? The one you insisted we use for financial transparency? Turns out it's very transparent. Syncs all our purchases, timestamps, even GPS locations. Amazing what technology can do these days." Brett cleared his throat. "Look, man, this doesn't have to get ugly." "Ugly?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Oh, friend, we passed ugly about 3 months ago, when you started screwing my wife in hotel rooms I was paying for." The next morning, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee that actually cost $2 instead of $23.50, scrolling through the evidence I'd been collecting for weeks. My laptop screen showed a spreadsheet that would make any accountant weep with joy. Every suspicious charge, every unexplained absence, every lie cross-referenced and color-coded. Liana had spent the night at her sister's place, or so she claimed, probably with Brett, planning their next move. But they didn't know that I'd already made mine. I'd spent the early morning hours making phone calls and sending emails. First to our landlord, explaining that I'd be the sole tenant moving forward. Then to our insurance company, removing Liana from our joint policy. Then to the credit card companies, closing our shared accounts. The beauty of being married to someone who never paid attention to finances was that everything was in my name. The lease, the insurance, the credit cards, all mine. Liana had been happy to let me handle the boring money stuff, while she focused on her career in marketing. Turns out that was a mistake on her part. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Brett. We need to talk." I replied, "Do we? I think your wife might have more interesting things to discuss with you." "You haven't actually contacted Sarah, have you?" Sarah. So that was the wife's name. I pulled up Facebook and searched for Brett plus Sarah, scrolling through profiles until I found them. Brett Harlan, real estate agent. Sarah Harlan, nurse at the local hospital. 2 kids, a golden retriever, and a house in the suburbs that looked like something from a magazine. I studied Sarah's photos. A pretty woman with kind eyes and a genuine smile, the type who probably baked cookies for school fundraisers and remembered everyone's birthday. She deserved better than a cheating husband and a home-wrecking wife. "Not yet," I texted back. "But the day is young." My phone rang immediately. Brett's voice was tight with panic when I answered. "Listen, Owen, right? We can work this out. Liana told me about your situation, the job stress, the drinking." "What drinking?" I interrupted. "She said you've been having problems, that the marriage has been rocky for months. Look, these things happen. Adults can handle this maturely." I almost laughed. "Maturely? You mean like adults who sneak around behind their spouses' backs and charge hotel rooms to other people's credit cards? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And soon it'll be exactly what Sarah thinks too." I hung up and immediately started typing a Facebook message to Sarah Harlan. I kept it simple and direct. "Hi, Sarah. You don't know me, but I think we should talk about our spouses. My name is Owen Reddick, and I have some information you might find interesting." I attached 3 photos, screenshots of text messages between Liana and Brett that were explicit enough to leave no room for misinterpretation, and hit send. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. Sarah Harlan called me within an hour. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tears underneath. "Is this real?" she asked without preamble. "I'm afraid so. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "How long have you known?" I thought about lying, making myself look less pathetic, but decided honesty was the better policy. "I suspected for about 2 months. I've had proof for 3 weeks." 3 weeks? Her voice cracked. "You waited 3 weeks?" I needed to be sure, and I needed to protect myself legally before I made any moves. There was a long pause, then, "Can you send me everything? All of it?" "Are you sure you want to see everything?" she repeated firmly. I spent the next hour compiling a comprehensive file, every text message, every hotel receipt, every suspicious charge. I organized it chronologically, added timestamps and locations, even included some photos I'd taken of Liana getting dressed up for her coffee meetings. By the time I finished, it was a 40-page document that told the complete story of my wife's affair with Sarah's husband. I emailed it to her with a subject line that read, "The complete truth." My phone rang again 20 minutes later. This time, it was Liana. "What have you done?" she screamed without saying hello. "I've told the truth. Novel concept, I know. Sarah just called Brett crying. She's threatening to take the kids." Good for Sarah. She's got more sense than I gave her credit for. "Owen, you can't do this. You're ruining everything." "I'm ruining everything?" I stood up from my kitchen table, pacing to the window. I'm not the one who's been lying for months. I'm not the one who's been charging romantic getaways to someone else's credit card. I'm not the one who's been... It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Liana? Were you planning to ask for a divorce after you'd bled me dry? Or were you just going to keep playing house with both of us indefinitely? She was crying now, ugly sobs that might have moved me 6 months ago. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every single day for months, you looked me in the eye and lied. You made me feel crazy for suspecting what was right in front of my face. You spent my money on your affair and then came home and kissed me like nothing had happened. I can explain. No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no excuse that justifies what you've done. What do you want from me, Owen? What will it take to fix this? I looked around my kitchen, our kitchen technically, though not for much longer. At the refrigerator covered with photos of our life together, the coffee maker I'd bought her for Christmas, the table where we'd eaten breakfast together just yesterday morning while she planned her afternoon with another man. I want you gone, I said quietly. I want you to pack your things and leave. The lease is in my name. The utilities are in my name. The insurance is in my name. You have no legal right to be here anymore. You can't just kick me out. I live here too. Actually, I can. Check the lease, sweetheart. You're not on it. You never wanted to be bothered with the paperwork, remember? The silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing, could picture her face as she realized how thoroughly she'd been outmaneuvered. I'll fight this, she said finally. With what lawyer? What money? I've closed our joint accounts, remember? And I doubt Brett's going to be in a position to help you, considering his wife is probably meeting with a divorce attorney as we speak. The fallout spread faster than I'd anticipated. By Thursday, 3 days after my confrontation with Liana and Brett, I was getting calls from mutual friends who'd heard various versions of the story. The first call came from Jake Morrison, a guy I'd known since college who'd introduced me to Liana at a party 5 years ago. He and his wife Michelle had been couple friends with us, dinner parties, game nights, the whole suburban social scene. Dude, what the hell is going on? Jake said when I answered the phone. Michelle just got off the phone with Liana and she's saying you've lost your mind. Have I? What exactly did Liana tell her? That you've been paranoid and controlling, that you hacked her phone and kicked her out over some innocent friendship. She's saying you've been drinking heavily and making threats. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. And you believe her? I don't know what to believe, man. This doesn't sound like you. You're right. It doesn't sound like me. The old me would have kept quiet and let her make a fool of me indefinitely. But I'm not that guy anymore. I spent 20 minutes explaining the situation to Jake, offering to send him the evidence if he wanted to see it. By the end of the call, his tone had changed completely. Jesus, Owen. I had no idea. I'm sorry, man. Don't apologize to me. Just don't believe everything you hear, okay? But Jake was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I got similar calls from other friends, some supportive, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. Liana was working overtime to control the narrative, painting herself as the victim of an unstable, controlling husband. The worst call came from Tom Bradley, a guy I'd considered one of my closest friends. We'd been in each other's weddings, had spent countless weekends working on home improvement projects together, had planned to take a fishing trip to Alaska next summer. I can't believe you'd do this to Liana, he said without preamble when I answered his call. Do what, exactly? Destroy her reputation over some jealous paranoia. Michelle told my wife that you've been following Liana around, going through her personal things, making her life hell. Tom, she was having an affair. I have proof. I don't want to hear your proof. I've known Liana for years, and she's not capable of something like that. She's a good person. Good people don't charge hotel rooms to their husband's credit card so they can sleep with married men. You're sick, Owen. You need help. I need help? I'm not the one who's been lying to everyone for months. I'm not going to listen to you trash talk a woman I respect. Don't call me again." He hung up, and I stared at my phone in disbelief. Tom had been my friend for over a decade, and he was willing to throw that away based on Liana's lies without even hearing my side of the story. The pattern repeated itself over the next week. Friends chose sides, and more often than not, they chose Liana's. She was charming, beautiful, and convincing. I was just the boring husband with the boring job who'd apparently snapped under pressure. By the following Friday, I'd lost most of our mutual friends. The couples we'd socialized with stopped inviting me to gatherings. People I'd known for years crossed the street to avoid talking to me. Liana's version of events, that I was an unstable, controlling husband who'd fabricated evidence to justify my paranoia, had taken hold in our social circle. But I wasn't done yet. The opportunity for revenge came sooner than I'd expected, courtesy of Michelle Morrison's big mouth and social media addiction. I was scrolling through Facebook on Saturday morning when I saw her post, "Game night at our place tonight. Liana needs some cheering up after everything she's been through. 7 p.m., bring snacks and good vibes." The comments were a parade of support for my lying wife. "You're such a strong woman. Don't let anyone dim your light. Some men just can't handle independent women." I screenshotted the post and started planning. At 7:30 p.m., I showed up at Jake and Michelle's house with a bottle of wine and a laptop bag. Through the living room window, I could see the party in full swing, about 15 people, including several couples I'd considered friends, all gathered around Liana like she was holding court. Jake answered the door with a frown. "Owen, what are you doing here?" "I brought wine," I said, holding up the bottle, "and some entertainment for the evening." "I don't think this is a good idea, man." "Oh, I think it's a great idea. Don't you want to hear both sides of the story?" Before he could stop me, I walked into the living room. The conversation died instantly. Liana, who'd been sitting in the center of the couch looking perfectly composed, went pale when she saw me. "What is he doing here?" she asked Michelle. "I invited myself," I said cheerfully. "I heard you were telling stories about our marriage, and I thought I should contribute some details you might have forgotten." Tom Bradley stood up from his chair. "You need to leave, Owen, now." "Actually, Tom, I think you need to sit down and listen. All of you do." I opened my laptop and connected it to Jake's big screen TV. I brought a slideshow. I think you'll find it educational. "Owen, don't do this," Liana pleaded. "Do what? Tell the truth? Show our friends the real reason our marriage ended?" The first slide appeared on the screen, a screenshot of a text message from Liana to Brett. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Owen's working late, so we have all evening." The room went dead silent. Michelle gasped. Tom sat down heavily. "This is from 3 weeks ago," I said conversationally. "Right around the time you were telling everyone what a controlling husband I was." I clicked to the next slide. Hotel receipts, all charged to our joint credit card. The Marriott downtown, $247 a night. The Hampton Inn by the airport, $189. The boutique place on 5th Street, $312. I'm sure the thread count on those sheets was worth every penny of my money. Click. Another text message. "I love how you make me feel. Owen never touches me like you do." Click. A photo I'd taken through the cafe window of Liana and Brett holding hands across a table. Click. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals that coincided with their meeting times. "Stop it!" Liana screamed, jumping to her feet. "Stop showing them this." "Why? Aren't these the innocent coffee meetings you told everyone about? The harmless friendship that your paranoid husband couldn't handle?" I turned to face the room full of people who'd abandoned me based on her lies. "This is what actually happened. While you were all feeling sorry for poor Liana and her unstable husband, she was charging romantic getaways to my credit card and texting her lover about how much better he was in bed than me." Michelle looked like she was going to be sick. "Liana, is this real?" "It's not what it looks like," Liana said desperately. "It looks like adultery," said Janet Phillips, Tom's wife. It looks like fraud. And lies, added someone else. So many lies. Tom was staring at the screen with his mouth open. You made me feel like garbage for not believing you. You said Owen was making it all up. I never meant for it to go this far, Liana said, tears streaming down her face. Which part? I asked. The affair or getting caught? I clicked to the final slide, a photo of Sarah Harlan's divorce papers, which she'd sent me earlier that day. Brett's wife filed for divorce yesterday. She's asking for full custody of their kids and half of everything he owns. Turns out adultery affects property division in this state. I closed the laptop and looked around the room. So that's the real story. Not the version where I'm a paranoid, controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. The version where my wife of 5 years decided to have an affair and then lie about it to everyone we know. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Jake cleared his throat. Liana, I think you should leave. Jake. No, I'm serious. You lied to all of us. You made us choose sides based on complete fabrications. One by one, the people who'd supported her began turning away. Michelle wouldn't even look at her. Tom shook his head in disgust. The women who'd been posting supportive comments on Facebook suddenly found the floor very interesting. Liana grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing to look back at me. I hope you're happy, Owen. You've destroyed everything. No, I said quietly. You destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone knew who was really responsible. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office reviewing the final divorce papers when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Brett. We need to meet. I showed the message to my attorney, David Chen, who raised an eyebrow. What do you think he wants? Probably to negotiate some kind of settlement. His divorce is getting ugly, and I'm sure his lawyer told him I could be called as a witness. Are you going to meet with him? I thought about it for a moment. Yeah, I think I will, but not alone, and not anywhere private. I texted Brett back. Starbucks on Main Street, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone. The next afternoon, I arrived at the coffee shop early and chose a table near the window where I could see him coming. Brett walked in exactly at 2 p.m., looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past month. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled, his expensive suit was wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of a man who wasn't sleeping well. He sat down across from me without ordering anything. Thanks for meeting me. What do you want, Brett? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Sarah's lawyer is trying to take everything. The house, the kids, my business. She's claiming I used marital assets to fund the affair, and she wants receipts for every dollar I spent. Sounds like a problem for you and your lawyer. You have evidence that could help me, proof that Liana initiated contact, that she was the aggressor in the relationship. I almost laughed. You want me to help you blame my wife for your affair? I'm not saying it was all her fault, but she did pursue me. Those early text messages, the ones where she was asking me to meet her, suggesting the hotels. Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop talking. Brett's face flushed. Look, I know you hate me and I understand why, but we're both getting screwed here. Our wives are moving on, starting over, and we're the ones paying for everything. Liana's moving on? You didn't know? She got a job in Chicago. Some marketing firm offered her a position and she's leaving next week. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Chicago? She said she needs a fresh start, away from all the drama. She's already found an apartment. I stared at him, processing this information. Liana was leaving town, escaping the consequences of her actions while I was left to deal with the aftermath. Meanwhile, Brett was trying to manipulate me into helping him salvage his own situation. Here's the thing, Brett, I said finally. I don't care about your divorce. I don't care about your custody battle. And I sure as hell don't care about helping you shift blame onto my wife. But if you testify that I'm not going to testify to anything except the truth, which is that you're both adults who made choices And now you both get to live with the consequences. I stood up to leave, then paused. Oh, and Brett, don't contact me again. Ever. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not happiness, exactly, but a sense of closure that had been missing since this whole mess started. But I wasn't quite done yet. On Thursday evening, 2 days before Liana was supposed to leave for Chicago, I did something that surprised even me. I called her. Owen? She sounded shocked to hear from me. Hi, Liana. I heard you're leaving town. Yes, I got a job offer. I think it's best if I make a fresh start. Probably a good idea. Chicago's nice this time of year. There was a long pause. Is that why you called? To wish me well? Actually, no. I called because I have something that belongs to you. What? Your grandmother's ring, the one you inherited when she died. You left it in the jewelry box when you moved out. Another pause. I thought you might have sold it or thrown it away. I'm not vindictive, Liana, despite what you might think. Could you mail it to me? I'll send you my new address. I'd rather give it to you in person, one last conversation before you disappear forever. She was quiet for so long I thought she might have hung up. Finally, okay, where do you want to meet? How about that cafe where you used to meet Brett? Seems appropriate. Owen, 7 p.m. tomorrow. I'll bring the ring. I hung up before she could argue. The next evening, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, just like old times. I chose the same table where I'd seen her holding hands with Brett and ordered 2 coffees, one for me, one for her. Old habits. Liana walked in exactly at 7, looking nervous and beautiful in the way that had first attracted me all those years ago. She'd always been stunning, even when she was lying to my face. She sat down across from me and immediately noticed the small jewelry box on the table between us. Thank you, she said quietly. This means a lot to me. I know it does. It was your grandmother's favorite. She picked up the box and opened it, smiling at the simple gold band with its tiny diamond. She used to tell me stories about the day my grandfather proposed, how he saved for months to buy this ring, how nervous he was when he asked her father for permission. Sounds like he really loved her. He did. They were married for 53 years. Must be nice having that kind of example to look up to. Liana's smile faded. Owen, Don't. I held up a hand. Don't apologize again. Don't explain. Don't make excuses. We're past all that. Then why did you want to meet? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, much thicker than the one I'd given her and Brett that first night. I placed it on the table next to her coffee cup. What's this? Your severance package. She frowned, opening the envelope. Inside were dozens of documents, printouts of emails, bank statements, credit card records, phone logs, and photographs. But these weren't the same documents I'd shown everyone else. These were different. I don't understand, she said, flipping through the papers. Those are copies of everything I sent to the IRS yesterday. Her face went white. The IRS? Turns out your new job in Chicago isn't exactly legitimate. The company that hired you, Morrison Marketing Solutions, doesn't actually exist. It's a shell company set up by your friend Ava to help you disappear with money that doesn't belong to you. Liana's hands were shaking now. How did you... I'm a systems analyst, remember? I know how to trace digital footprints. I know how to follow money trails. And I know how to recognize tax fraud when I see it. I leaned forward, keeping my voice conversational. See, I started wondering how you could afford to move to Chicago so quickly after losing your job. So I did some digging. Turns out you and Ava have been skimming money from client accounts at your old marketing firm for months. Small amounts, nothing that would be noticed right away, but it adds up. That's not $47,000 to be exact, moved through a series of fake invoices and shell companies, eventually ending up in accounts controlled by you and your best friend. Very clever, actually. If you hadn't gotten greedy and tried to use some of that money to fund your affair, I might never have noticed the pattern. Liana was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Owen, please. The IRS is very interested in your creative accounting methods. So is the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Apparently, using fake companies to launder stolen money crosses some federal lines. I stood up, leaving money on the table for both coffees. Your flight to Chicago is tomorrow morning, right? I'd hurry if I were you. Although I should mention that your new employer, the real one, not the fake shell company, received an interesting email this afternoon. Something about their new hire being under federal investigation for financial crimes. You destroyed my life, she whispered. No, Liana. You destroyed your own life. I just made sure there were consequences. I walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Oh, and that ring. It's not actually your grandmother's. I had it appraised last week. Turns out it's a fake, cubic zirconia and gold plating. The real ring was probably sold years ago. Seems like dishonesty runs in your family. I left her sitting there, staring at the worthless ring and the evidence of her crimes, and walked out into the cool evening air. 3 days later, I read in the local newspaper that 2 women had been arrested for embezzling money from a downtown marketing firm. The article didn't mention names, but it didn't need to. 6 months after that, I received a letter from the federal prison in Ohio, where Liana was serving her 18-month sentence. I threw it away without opening it. Brett's divorce was finalized around the same time. Sarah got the house, the kids, and most of his assets. He moved into a studio apartment and took a job selling used cars. As for me, I kept my job, kept my house, and slowly rebuilt my life. Some of our old friends eventually came around, apologizing for believing Liana's lies. Others never did, but that was okay. I learned to tell the difference between real friends and fair-weather ones. I never remarried, but I dated occasionally. I learned to trust my instincts, to pay attention to red flags, and to never again mistake being nice for being weak. And every morning when I drank my $2 coffee and read the newspaper, I remembered the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad or getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth and letting the consequences speak for themselves.